In this week's video, we're going to dive deep into the mysterious but exciting world of film simulations. I'm using the Fujifilm cameras, and one of their biggest assets is the excellent JPEG engine they have. I've always been a RAW shooter, but since I got the Fujis, I shoot more and more JPEG, and for my personal stuff, I shoot mainly just JPEG, or if I'm doing events, I'm starting to shoot a lot more JPEG because the files are so much faster to process. They're basically, if you make the right choices in the camera, they're almost ready to go and they need very little touching up. Sometimes it's even very hard to get the same results with a RAW file as you would get from the JPEG coming straight out of the camera. So enough reasons to shoot more and more JPEG. The one thing that you just have to keep in mind is that you have to make your choices in advance. And I have a couple of JPEG settings that I use, film simulation settings, and I'll walk you through all the parameters of those. So you can maybe try them out as a starting point too. It's all very personal. Other photographers use other settings, but these are some that work for me. Now, I don't have an HDMI kind of recorder to record straight from the screen of the camera, so I'm using the X-T2 to film the back of the camera while I change the settings. It's a bit complicated, but as long as you get to see what I do, it will be fine. So let's get started. Let's switch on the camera, and I'm going to show you which settings that I use regularly. So go to the quick menu, and you basically have here you have a couple of presets that you can set for yourself. Now my C1, the custom 1 setting, is a very, how should I put it, flat kind of image. It's like just in case. It's not the most exciting image, but it's an image that gives you some more leeway in post-processing, and that's why it's at number 1. It's not one that I use very often, but like if I'm not sure, it's a good starting point. So let's go over those settings. Dynamic range. I always have that set to 100. You can change it to 200, 400, and automatic. It has no real effect on your JPEG, but it does on your RAW files. And if you keep it at 100, then I know my results are always consistent. I used to have it on automatic, but then sometimes the camera, what it does, it raises the ISO to a higher level in order to get more dynamic range, and it underexposes your images, which I found pretty annoying if I'm editing them or if I'm editing the RAW files afterwards. I'm pretty strict with my exposures while I'm shooting, so I'm not really worrying about extremely under or overexposing certain areas of the shot. Now with digital files, you rather underexpose than overexpose, because once the highlights are gone, they're gone. And in the shadow, there's more detail that you can bring back up. So that is basically what that setting is trying to do. But if I know, if I'm taking an image and I know that I want to make sure that I have enough detail in the highlights, I'll underexpose it myself. So nothing against the auto setting, but I prefer the 100 setting. That way all my results are consistent, and I have the added benefit of using the lower ISOs, and I can make sure that I'm responsible for the exposure. White balance, I often shoot in auto mode, but I often also use one of the presets, like the sunny or the cloudy or whatever. I don't often set my white balance completely manually, but I use one of the presets to get close and to get consistent, because if you're shooting auto white balance in JPEG and the auto white balance messes up from time to time, it's very hard to match the different white balance settings over a series of pictures, like for example in a wedding or something. So usually in those situations when I get the feeling that the auto white balance might be a bit off, I try to use one of the presets. Now noise reduction, I always put it at -4 because if any noise reduction the camera applies to an image, definitely at the really high ISOs, make the images a bit plastic looking, I think. If there was an option to switch it off completely, I would do that. I find it better if there is really too much noise to get rid of it in Lightroom than to let the camera handle it. So always, whatever film simulation I use, that's always at -4. These I could always use the largest file, shoot raw plus the fine JPEG. This is the film simulation that I'm using for this flat neutral JPEG preset. Highlight tone is at -1. That means that I will preserve the highlights just a bit. So it compresses the highlights a bit in order not to blow out. Shadow tone also put at -1, so that protects your shadows a bit more. Color is at 0 and sharpness is at +2. It's worth trying to experiment with all these settings yourself. I'm not the one to tell you which one is best. It's just a matter of personal choice. And now we get to the more exciting film simulations, the one with their own character. So let's go to my C2. This is kind of my Tri-X kind of film simulation, contrasty black and white. I really love working with contrasty black and whites. So again, noise reduction at -4, and I use the black and white with a red filter film simulation here because that gives you a nice bit of drama. Protecting the highlights by -1. Remember, the highlights are the most sensitive part of a digital image. And I'm boosting the shadow tones to +2, so the blacks are gonna get really black. Sometimes it's a bit too much, and then I can change one of these settings, of course. Also sharpness +2. Then we get to C3, which is like another black and white preset, and that's more like a soft, subtle portrait preset. Noise reduction -4, and I'm using the across simulation with the yellow. The older Fujifilm cameras don't have the across simulation. First, I was not completely sold on across, but in some situations where the light has a bit of direction, I think it's really beautiful, especially for portraits. So generally, I try to keep the contrast a bit neutral here or a bit soft. So protecting the highlight tones by -1 and the shadow tone at 0, so the blacks don't go too black. Sometimes I even put this as -1, -2, if it's a very contrasty situation and I want to preserve some detail in the shadows. Sharpness is only at +1, so that's adding just a tiny bit of sharpness, because I think that's probably enough. Probably my favorite film simulation for portraits is the Astia film simulation. Put the highlight tones at -1 again, shadow tone at 0, because the Astia is already a pretty contrasty film simulation. I'm gonna put that at 0. Also the sharpness is at 0 because I want, if I use this in portraits, I want the skin to look good and everything, so I'm not going to use extra sharpness for that. Astia works great in mainly natural light and when there's enough light. If you start using Astia above ISO 1600, I'm not too crazy about it, and I may go to say like the NS, which is the pro negative film simulation. But like I said, use the Astia if you have enough light. In typical portrait situations, then I like it a lot. It's very soft on the skin tones, very gentle, so that's something that always works for me, or at least a lot of the time. let's go to the next one. This is Velvia's film simulation. It's something that I don't use very often, except maybe for a sunrise or sunset. Preserving the highlights and the shadows a bit. Again, Velvia is a pretty contrasty film simulation in itself. Boosting the color even more, although it is a very saturated film simulation, and add a bit of sharpness for these kind of images. I generally don't use this kind of oversaturated things, but like for example for Instagram, it works really well. So I use it from time to time, but not very often. Custom 6 is Classic Chrome. Classic Chrome can look amazing, but also in some situations, to me, it just doesn't work. Highlight tone is at -1, shadow at 0 again. From itself, a pretty contrasty film simulation already, so I don't want to add anything extra, just a bit of sharpness. It's not something that I personally use a lot, but I know a lot of photographers who are completely in love with Classic Chrome. Now, I don't use it a lot in still pictures, but this is a bit of my oddball preset, the Custom 7, which I use mainly for video. So it's Classic Chrome, and weirdly enough, this combination of -2 for the highlights and -2 for the shadows gives me a reasonably flat file that can still give me some you know, I can still do a bit of grading with that file because it's not too contrasty, but it looks incredibly well in my opinion for video, and even sometimes for photography, and not so much on a dull gray day like we have today, but if you have a bit more of a contrasty day, that really works very well for me. Just do +1 on the sharpening for these. But yeah, it depends. So these are my starting point film simulation settings. They have evolved over time, and I'm sure that they will still evolve. Try them if you want to. Try them as a starting point and see what works for you. Maybe some work, maybe some don't work for you, but a lot of people ask me about it, and I'm always interested to see other photographers' basic settings of it. That's why I am sharing it with you. Now quickly, I want to show you how you can set these custom modes, because for some people that is not really very clear how to do it, and it is a bit confusing anyway. So you go to your menu and then you go to select custom setting or edit save custom settings. Now you can select the custom settings in your quick menu, so there's no need to do it in this menu. But if you want to edit and save your custom settings, then this is the way to do it. So you just enter that menu. Now let's say you want to change one of these settings. Let's say we change the custom 5, the Velvia one, because we want a bit less contrast or something. Go in there, and then you can change everything you want. Let's say we want to change those shadow tones a bit, change whatever you want. Now if you put the left arrow on the, or the left button on the D-pad, it will ask you custom 5 set OK. If you press and change to OK, press OK, then it will be stored. If you do like this, and you just change something and you go back, it will also ask it, but it's important to confirm that it is set. So make sure that you do that so you can use all these presets. I hope you enjoyed the presets video. It's a bit technical, I know, but I get a lot of questions about it. So I thought I'd share my basic settings with you. Now, next week I have a video coming up that is about more questions. I asked a couple of people, or asked on Facebook, if anybody had any questions for me. So I'm doing a bit of a Q&A. Between that video and now, I will also upload my video of Japan, first time I was in Tokyo, with the GoPro on top of my camera. Didn't shoot much with it, but some people requested it and I forgot to upload it. I'm gonna put a little intro to it, but it's too long ago to remember the exact situation, so I'm not going to do any voiceover of it, but I still wanted to share that just in case you wanted to see that. So coming soon in a couple of days, GoPro video of Japan, I think that was 2013. And next week we have a Q&A video with a lot of interesting questions and hopefully some interesting answers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I see you next time.